Hello, and welcome to Mental Health Matters. I'm your host, Liz Lang. Each week on this podcast, we will break down various aspects of mental health. We are so excited you're here and hope you enjoy this week's episode. Hey guys, Liz Lang here with Jeremiah and Selina Woodruff from Core Connection. And this week we are going to get into blending families. And before we do, I have this week's parenting moment. So as you guys are aware, we are a religious family. And my daughter was given an assignment. So she was given a topic and asked to write and share with the rest of the kids they call it primary. So it's ages 3 to 11. And so in the past, what I've done is I've usually helped, I've done a lot to help them write it themselves. But this time I just said, okay, I let her do almost the whole thing by herself. And so she's sitting here with her notebook and her pencil, and she's like just staring off. And I can tell she's thinking about it. And she's like, I have no idea where to go with this topic. And it was a topic that she was familiar with, but I could tell, I was like, okay, she's not going to get this. So rather than just explaining it to her, I quickly Googled something and I said, okay, here, read this and then write it yourself. Don't copy anything, but just use this to write your talk. And she did a really, really good job. And so I feel like I was really happy with the amount of help that I gave her, right? Of like, I didn't do too much, but I definitely gave her direction. And lest I sound like too brilliant of a parent, I feel like I also should point out that we were writing this about maybe 45 minutes before she was supposed to do it. So
that's the best time to do it. That's when the pressure, then the ideas come, and then you do it.
Right.
Well, so most of us would just write it ourselves for them because it seems easier, right?
And I've totally done that. Well, and it was mostly when they were younger and they couldn't even write themselves. Then it's like, yeah, I'll write something real quick and be like, here, do this. I've also been guilty of that. But we were given this assignment a week ago, and there's 2 hours of church. And she was supposed to do this during the second hour of church, and we were literally writing it in the first hour of church. So, and I know there are so many parents listening that go to the same church that we do, and they're like thinking, oh, I do that all the time. Because it happens.
Our 10-year-old was writing his talk during sacrament yesterday, so I'm just trying to figure out what the problem is.
Right. Yeah, it happens. But anyway, so I think this is just a good example of, like we need to give our kids assistance, but let them do themselves. And the most important thing is she was really proud of what she did. That was the biggest thing, is like I could tell she was really proud of it. And so I feel like it would really help build her confidence of, hey, I can do this myself.
Yeah, that's awesome that you're able to allow her to do that and let it happen in the way it needed to.
Yeah. Okay, so blending families. This is a little bit of a spinoff from adding to the family that we did last month in discussing when you bring in a new baby, either via birth or adoption. So blending families is kind of its own unique topic because it's much, much more complex than adding via birth or adoption, because you could be adding multiple children at once, but you're also adding a new adult into the family dynamic. And that can be extremely rewarding, but it can also be extremely complex and challenging for parents and for teens, because it's a complete shift and a complete change. And as we mentioned, adding to the family, kids don't get a choice. They just have to accept it and do the best that they can. And, because ultimately this is mom and dad's decision. But there are certainly things that we can do to help maybe make this transition easier. And one of the things that I think would be a really good place to start is the complicated emotions that have already maybe been dealt with because either divorce or death has happened. So when you're blending a family, when either mom or dad is getting married, remarried to somebody else, there's already been a lot of emotional pain and turmoil, either through the death of a parent or the divorce of a parent. So maybe that's a good place to start, and just the importance of letting kids grieve what used to be, because even if they've already kind of maybe gone through that grieving process, they're going to go through it again when you blend this family. It's going to bring all those feelings back.
Yeah, there's so many different levels of complexity to this that the emotions get kind of out of sort quite often. And for kids, it can be confusing and challenging. And sometimes we forget to even consider that, because the reality is not only the child or the children going through these complex emotional experiences, such as losing a parent or a divorce, but the adults are going through it too, and the struggles that exist there, right? And so it's not uncommon for the kids to just kind of be left out. And sometimes kids worry that they're to blame for the divorce or whatever it might be. And so they might not always talk about what they're feeling and experiencing. And so, yeah, the emotional stress is complicated and difficult for them to navigate. And as parents, we can help with that. You know, when we talk about blending families, we could be bringing in new siblings, a new adult, which also includes probably a new place to live, possibly a new school, new sets of rules and expectations, different styles of parenting, another adult relationship that we might not be approving of, especially if this comes after a divorce where we had really hoped that mom and dad would resolve things as a child and they didn't. So there's this fear of betrayal of the other parent. So there's just so many different things to consider and to look at that could be going on. We can't possibly cover all of them in one episode, or I don't know that we really would have the capacity to cover all of them, because every situation is unique in and of itself. But yeah, we've got a big responsibility here as parents when we do decide to blend a family.
And I think that feelings of loyalty can be especially difficult, regardless if it was through death or divorce, because when you add in a new parent, I think it's just so natural for kids to feel like, well, how could you replace this parent that I lost one way or the other? Like, how could somebody come in and replace this parent? I don't want a replacement. I want my original parent. I want things the way they were. And it's normal for kids to struggle with that. And it's okay. And I think it's also important to give them space to feel those emotions and to work that out. I mean, obviously as a parent, you can do the things of reassurance of, like, you know, for example, if it's a stepmom, hey, she is not going to try to replace mom by any way, shape, or form. She's just going to be an additional support, additional resource for you, and an additional someone to love you. But you can say and do all the right things, and kids, teens, they're still likely to deal with that turmoil of loyalty.
You said something important, Liz. We can say that all we want. The reality is you actually are at some level replacing that individual within the home.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Maybe they're not going to step into the same parenting role or the same, you know, support role, but they're still stepping in. If it's stepmom coming in, she's still stepping into the role as wife and mother in the home and doing all of those things. So just because you said it doesn't mean your kid's going to believe it, and doesn't mean we're actually going to act that way too. So we have to be aware of what we're saying and doing in that type of scenario. It's tough.
It is. And I think it's important to let kids voice that, like, give them a safe space to say, that's not my mom. And you know, and let them, and obviously there needs to be respect, right? So that doesn't mean that they get to disrespect this new step parent, and you just let them say things like, well, I don't have to listen to you because you're not really my mom. Like, right. So there still needs to be boundaries. But if your kid is really struggling with this, give them space to say it to you, right? Maybe they don't necessarily need to say it to stepmom. And obviously this applies too with the stepdad. It just, stepmom was just the example that I went with. But, you know, give your kid a safe space to feel those feelings, and don't just make those feelings wrong, because, you know, and hopefully stepmom or stepdad can really understand and put themselves in that emotional space of, this is hard for you, and I recognize that this is hard for you. And also keeping in mind that the relationship, it's not built in a day. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take time to figure out where everybody fits in. that's going to be a process, and maybe even a long process. And so everybody's got to just give grace and just patience as everybody's figuring out their new roles, I think is going to be kind of the key thing here.
Yeah, I appreciate that you brought up the time constraints to build relationships, because relationships aren't instant. Certainly when we have a baby, we instantly love them, and that's a little bit different. But we're talking about people who already have had other relationships, and we're, in a sense, kind of replacing some of those relationships or adding to them. So it takes a significant amount of effort to build those relationships. And the other thing that I thought about is that as you navigate this as a parent, man, I think for me, I'd want to be super, super cautious moving into the dating space and then into the engagement space and then marriage space. I would be having lots and lots of conversations with my children and asking them where they're at and how they feel and what they're experiencing, so that we don't have any giant surprises that all of a sudden, hey, we're getting married, and the kid's like, wait, what? No, they should be aware of what's coming. And I realize it's mom and dad's business. And I know that there's circumstances out there that may vary a little bit. I'm just saying, for me, I would be proceeding with extreme caution going down that road because of the complexity that's coming your way.
Yeah.
I'm listening to a book right now called Let Them from Mel Robbins, and it's the Let Them theory. And so she talks about this as an example to use the Let Them theory. And I just find it really interesting because, well, first, the Let Them theory is allowing people to be who they are, how they're going to act, how they're going to respond, and that's not affecting you. Just let them be who they are and what they're experiencing. And then the follow-up is let me. So how am I going to act? How am I going to respond? Who do I want to be? And so when you apply it to this situation, as a step parent coming into a blended family, you would let them grieve. You would let them not like you. You would let them be upset. You would let them have a hard time with this, instead of taking it personal or force it on them that you want them to accept you, or that you're now the authority that's coming into their home now, right? And so I just think it's a really good thought and idea when it comes to the situation of when you can step back and let them and have that compassion for them to have, like you said, like, oh, you're not my parent, and not being offended or upset about that, but understanding where are they coming from? What are they experiencing? I wonder, this has got to be hard for them. And so not coming in and trying to control and change everything, but letting it happen and letting the situation and the families happen and be there and be who you want to be and who you want to show up to be in those situations.
Yeah, I think that is a really healthy way to look at it, because, I feel like a lot of people go into this thinking, oh, this is going to be great. And this is going to be so fantastic. And I'm so excited because I'm going to do such great things and I'm going to have such a great impact. And then you get into the nitty gritty of it and the kid is like, I don't like you. Right.
Yep.
And not that it's going to be like that every time, but I think that, again, just kids shouldn't be punished for having negative feelings about a situation. So if they're unhappy about this really big life decision that they didn't get to be a part of, I don't think that it is fair to punish them because they're feeling unhappiness. Now, that doesn't mean they're allowed to be disrespectful. I think it's also important to be clear, like, you still have to have boundaries in place. But again, just let them feel, let them be, and, just provide them that safety. So I think some common myths that could be good to talk about is love will make everything work instantly. It doesn't work like that.
Well, and love is an action word. It's not something that just happens, right? We have to show love. We have to build trust. We have to build relationships. We have to build marriages. Those things don't just happen. And when you combine a family, not only does mom and dad now have this responsibility to build their marriage and build their relationship, but they've got to build relationships with one another's children when they're blended like that. And it is a significant amount of work, and it should be full of love and compassion and care. But love won't make everything just work because we love them, because we care about them. Anyone who has children knows that. Like, I can love my teenager, but there's a lot of work that's got to go into that relationship with my teen to manage it and to build it and to help them feel loved and appreciated. And it's going to be even more complex when we bring in a stepmom or a stepdad to try and start building that relationship as well.
And there's going to be conflict. Like it's going to be hard. There's going to be bumps. People are going to make mistakes. You as a step parent are going to make mistakes, and that's okay. But I think it is important also to go into the idea with the expectation of this is not going to just be a smooth and easy transition. This is going to be a challenging transition for all of us. And, just giving yourself grace and giving your spouse grace, because that can also be another really complicated factor of difference in parenting styles. And that can be really, really tricky to navigate of, maybe the step parent thinks things should be like, well, no, things need to be done this way, but you guys have always done it a certain way before. That can be challenging, and that can also create confusion and difficulty for kids as well when those kinds of conflicts happen.
Yeah, and my goodness, I hope we resolve parenting style conflicts long before we blend the family.
Yes.
And we've had those conversations, but sometimes we don't, and I get that. But we've got to get on the same page, just like any other set of parents. A blended family's got to be on the same page, and we do have that added dynamic, right? Maybe mom doesn't want stepdad disciplining her children that were from a previous marriage, or vice versa. And so we have to understand what this looks like. What does parenting look like when we go into this relationship? What are your expectations of me, and what are my expectations of you? And how are we going to make this blended family work together? Because if we're blending two families and we have children from both sides, man, it's going to be pretty tough to have two sets of rules and two sets of expectations. It's probably not going to go very well. So getting on the same page is going to be important in that aspect.
Yeah. And obviously, yes, 100% talk about it and have a discussion beforehand, but also expect that you're going to run into something that didn't get talked about, because it's just impossible to predict every parenting scenario. And so I think the best case scenario in that instance is just, as much as possible, try to circle back, like put a pin in it. Don't resolve the conflict in front of the kid, depending on the conflict. Like, I am very much a big proponent of kids seeing parents resolve conflict in the moment. I think that's great for kids to see. But when it comes to parenting decisions, particularly like major parenting decisions, I mean, it's a little bit different if it's can I have this extra candy bar? Like, okay, that's a minor thing. But if it's like a major decision, and, mom and stepdad or dad and stepmom are not on the same page, try not to, as much as possible, resolve that in front of the kids, because they still need to see mom and step parent, or like primary parent and step parent, or whatever the dynamic is, as a team. Because that is still important, just as if you were, original mom and dad. You guys need to be viewed as a team. So does, step parent need to also be viewed as part of the team, not either one has authority over the other. That's not a healthy dynamic for kids to see.
Yeah. And when we look at this idea of blending families, the thought keeps coming to my mind, the need to build trust and connection and belonging, that they still have a place here. Because essentially, when we make the decision to remarry as a parent, it's really not our children's business, yet it so deeply affects them. And so there can often come this question of like, where do I fit in here? What's my role? Where do I belong? And if we have worked on building trust and we have a deep connection with these children, it's a lot easier to work through that and navigate that sense of belonging and the new dynamics that are existing within the family. And of course, that's our go-to motto, right? At Core Connection is connection, to build connection. It's just so critical in familial relationships. And so we want to build those connections with our children. And hopefully there's an opportunity for stepmom or stepdad to also start learning to build trust and connection. So the child trusts that, like, hey, I'm not trying to step into this role as your mom or your dad, but I'm here for you. I'll support you, and we're going to do this together. Can be such a powerful thing. And I know that there are some families who are able to walk through this blending process without any major difficulties. I'm sure they're out there. I just haven't met them yet. But it's just a challenge, and it's complicated, and it can be done. But if we focus on building trust, building connection, and helping people to know that they belong in the family, we're going to find a lot better outcomes through these difficulties than if we just kind of come in and act like a bull in a china shop and destroy everything. And hey, we're going to blow up all of our old parenting styles and start over with these new styles. Our teenage kids especially are going to be like, whoa, wait a minute, man. I used to be able to stay up till 10 o'clock at night and have my phone in my room and do whatever I want. And now all of a sudden I got to turn in my phone at 7 and I got to go to bed at 8:30. And like, what's going on here? We're not going to have very much trust. We're not going to have connection, and we're not going to feel like we belong. We're going to feel like an outcast in our own home.
So we are talking and focusing a lot on the challenges, which the challenges are real and valid. But I want to offer a new thought and how this is an opportunity of something that can be so great. We have some friends that shared just yesterday, they both have been divorced and neither one of them wanted the divorce, but they've now remarried. And they were talking about how it was something that was so hard and so bad in their mind and in their life. But now that they have each other, they are now focusing on how it can be something good and how they can take from something that was so hard for them and so bad for them. And now they can build and make something that is so great and so wonderful and like a diamond in thereof, right? From those experiences. I just think that's a good thought to have if you're dealing with this. And it's definitely a challenge. I don't want to minimize that. But since I believe that your thoughts create your results, if you want those results, then what are your thoughts? Are your thoughts about how horrible and how challenging it is? Or is your thoughts, this is a great opportunity to learn. This is a great opportunity to make something new. This is a great opportunity to find connection.
Yeah, it might be a great opportunity to increase the connection with your child through this process, through being open and allowing them to have their feelings and validate those feelings, even if you don't agree with them, because what they're feeling is real. And, there's so much good that can come from blending a family. Sometimes it's economics, right? Maybe mom and dad got divorced and mom's been taking care of the kids and dad hasn't been paying child support. And so financially there's a struggle there, and mom gets remarried to somebody who's successful. And all of a sudden now that piece of life is not so difficult as it was before. And it could be a beautiful thing for the children and for the parents. And there is so much beauty that can come in blending a family, more relationships, more influence, more opportunity to grow together, to have connections with people, because as human beings, we need those connections, and children often need other adults in their lives, as we've talked about in some very recent podcasts, right? Other adults can play such a key role in their development and their growth and their happiness, but we can't force it to happen, right? We can't force affection. We can't force closeness. Connection takes time, and we're going to build that through love and respect, through keeping promises, through allowing our children to have the space they need to go through the difficult things that they're going to experience through this process, and being there to build them up and to support one another.
And also bouncing off of what Selina said, about where we choose to put our focus. I think that, if we choose to just focus on this is so hard, it's always just going to feel hard. But if we choose to find the joy, and I often say this, choosing to focus on joy doesn't mean pretending away the hard, because I also believe very much that it is important to feel your own feelings. Like it's important to process your emotions regardless of what they are, whether you like these emotions or you don't like these emotions. All emotions are valid. And you need to take time to process. But if your stepdaughter is just being disrespectful and making your life difficult, acknowledge that to yourself. And I don't think it's reasonable to say, well, what can I find that's joyful about her just, being completely disrespectful? Like, no, feel your feelings, but also find where there is joy, because I really believe that joy can be found in any circumstances. There's always something to be grateful for in any circumstance. And I will admit it can be hard to find, but I think that if you choose to focus on it enough, you will find the joy in addition to the struggle.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. I also think that another great way to help build connection and help also build belonging and to make this a fun experience for everybody is new traditions. Establishing new traditions that include the whole family. And I think that there's a lot of value also in maybe trying to keep some of the old traditions that you had in your previous family dynamic and blending it in with the new one. But think of opportunities of, we can do this great new thing that everybody can contribute to. That can be a really great way to help everybody feel included and like, oh, hey, I belong in this new family dynamic. I think that's going to be an important component too of success, is making sure that, because it can be hard, right? Especially if you have step siblings, right? There's going to be this natural sibling rivalry that's going to occur of trying to figure out, well, where do I belong amongst my new step siblings? And that's going to be mutual. So creating new family traditions can be a great way to help everybody feel accepted and like they belong.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's a great idea, but also that's another area we want to approach with caution, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if we just impose new family traditions and we yank old family traditions,
Right.
we can actually have the opposite effect of belonging and feel more disconnected, more isolated within the family. So this is a great opportunity for a family meeting to discuss, right? And we can say, hey, what traditions, like maybe around holidays, like, okay. So we have like Thanksgiving and Christmas coming up for a lot of families, and there's a lot of tradition that surrounds those holidays, right? Yeah. So having a family meeting that says, hey, what traditions are important to you, and what traditions do you want to keep? Or are there any that maybe we could adjust, or we could bring new traditions in? Having a say. Family meetings can be so powerful, because if someone has a voice, it's important, and not to discount those. And maybe not all traditions are going to be, we're not going to be able to maybe continue all of them, or we're not going to be able to introduce all new ideas, but helping create those and develop those together as a family will give those children a voice in what's happening within the family, and not just feel railroaded by the decisions the new parent's making. Because I promise you, most of the time, that teenager is going to feel like, hey, mom got married to this new guy and he set all the new rules and traditions, and we just got to do whatever he says, when it may not be just him, but that's the way they're going to view it. And so those conversations, those family meetings are a powerful place to help them feel like, hey, I'm still a part of this family. My opinion, my experiences, my voice matters.
Yeah. So I think the final topic I would like to discuss is the importance of not villainizing or making the other parent the bad guy. So, right, like I'm talking specifically about the parent not living in the home, right? So like mom and dad are divorced. I think it is so important to, and again, this takes time and it can be difficult, but co-parenting and figuring out how to co-parent is really, really important when blending a family. And so and I also think that it's important to, okay, you've remarried, you've added new siblings, you've added a new parent. Don't suddenly vilify the previous parent, right? Or don't make them out to be the bad guy, or try to say, oh, our home is now better or superior, or whatever the reason. Avoid that, because if the parent is still living, it is so important for them to still be involved, just as involved. Like, that's critical. You don't want to cut out the other parent, unless obviously there are cases of abuse, neglect. So I'm not going to say that there's never a reason to cut out a parent, because sometimes there is, but those are very, very rare. In general, do your best to maintain a good, healthy, functioning relationship with your ex-spouse so that everybody can be involved in everybody's lives.
Yeah, we can talk about this topic probably for the next 2 months worth of episodes, but
Yes,
because there's a lot of complexity here, and it's tough to maintain any kind of relationship with somebody you split from. It's really, really tough. And it's really easy to just lean on this idea of, I can make them look bad here and use our kids as pawns in this process of divorce and separation. And it's really, really easy. But I appreciate what you said. And I think it goes both ways, right? Even with maybe the parent that isn't getting remarried and watching this happen, and it'd be really easy to just jump on your kid's side and, oh, I hate my new stepdad and he's such a jerk and he does this and does that and it's awful. And it'd be real easy to be like, yeah, man, what a jerk, dirtbag, what a jerk. Why does he do this to you? And that's not fair. And, you don't have that problem when you come here. And if I ever got remarried, I wouldn't, it'd be so easy to go down that road. So finding that way to co-parent and to be supportive in most cases is going to be super helpful. And I think that we can kind of apply the same principle if we've lost a parent, right?
yes.
Like, hey, we're not going to talk bad about the parent that passed away. We're going to keep that love and that respect alive within the family for that person that's gone on, especially for the sake of the child and what they might be experiencing. And, at the end of the day, I can't recommend enough that if you're blending families, there's an opportunity there for some family counseling, if that makes sense. If not family counseling, at least individual counseling for children and for what they're going through. So they've got a place to escape and talk where they feel confident and comfortable if that's not in our own home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And somebody who's unbiased and somebody that they can say maybe the awful things that they're thinking, kids need to get that out, and maybe they feel guilty saying it to mom and dad, but it doesn't mean the feelings aren't there, and it doesn't mean that the kids don't need to say them. And so oftentimes that can be a really good benefit to professional counseling, is they don't have to worry about offending mom, dad, or step parent, right?
Yep.
By just saying the awful things. Okay.
Yep.
Final thoughts.
I think it's a really good opportunity for connection. You can find opportunities to understand each other and to learn from each other and support each other.
Yeah, I love that, the opportunity piece. And Selina always does a great job of bringing us back around and reminding us of the good, because it's really easy to focus on the struggles and challenges. But yeah, what a great chance to build and grow and to have a new adventure together. And if it's done right, it can be incredibly rewarding, along with the struggles and challenges that are going to come. But it can be incredibly rewarding. And just don't forget to take into consideration the experiences of your children when you do go down this road, or if you go down this road of blending a family.
Belonging isn't about being perfect. It's about being accepted even when things are messy. And, again, I think just with that, just emphasize, it's not going to happen overnight. It takes time, and you've got to be patient, and you can't force it. I think that's another really key takeaway, is don't try to force the relationship. Let it evolve and let it grow naturally. Okay, next week we are going to get into chores and responsibilities, and we will see you all then. Have a question? How about a topic you'd like us to cover? Send us an email at mentalhealthpod21@gmail.com.